Andres de AA Sports here with another video covering Mexican football and the Mexico National Team. The Mexico National Team on Thursday announced their roster for the month of March and their games versus Portugal and Belgium. And there is a lot to talk about regarding Mexico's team for these games. With that, here is my full analysis of Mexico's roster for March. Starting off with the goalkeepers, the three goalkeepers called up are Guillermo Ochoa, Raúl Tala Rangel, and Carlos Acevedo. The notable player not included is Luis Angel Malagon, and the reason for this could not be more heartbreaking. During Club America's Conca Champions game versus Philadelphia, Malagon suffered a freak non-contact injury, and it has now been confirmed that he will be ruled out for the World Cup with a torn Achilles tendon injury. This is really sad to see, especially given this comes after he missed the Copa America due to injury as well, and it's heartbreaking to see him deal with such bad luck in the form of injuries. I wish him a full and hopefully quick recovery, and that we do see him return for Mexico and get an opportunity in one of these big tournaments in the future. With Malagon ruled out due to injury, Guillermo Ochoa returns to the roster to take his place. And right now, not only do I think that Malagon's injury will result in Ochoa's spot on the World Cup roster being guaranteed, I also think Memo Ochoa will be competing to be the starting goalkeeper in the World Cup. And if Ochoa does end up being the starting goalkeeper going forward, I think it is the correct decision. He has the World Cup experience. He knows what it is like to play in the World Cup. Memo also brings good leadership to the team, and there has not been a single player or club that he has played for that has not liked his leadership presence in the locker room. And in terms of his performances with AEL Limassol in Cyprus this year, while he may not be playing in Europe's top leagues, he is still playing in a league that in its own aspects is competitive and has promotion and relegation. And he has been in really solid form with AEL Limassol. His performances are a big reason why AEL Limassol have advanced to the Cypriot Cup semifinals and have a chance to win Cyprus's domestic cup tournament. And he currently has as many clean sheets as Tala Rangel. With that, if Ochoa were to be named as the starting goalkeeper today, I would be okay with that decision. However, it looks like right now Ochoa and Rangel will be competing for the starting goalkeeper spot, which I have very mixed feelings about, as I still have doubts in regards to Tala Rangel. Give credit to Tala Rangel. He has been solid with Chivas, and as I said, has as many clean sheets as Ochoa at the club level right now. However, his performances and form with the Mexico national team have been very shaky and inconsistent. His most recent performance versus Iceland was arguably his best performance so far for Mexico. But in the two games prior in January, he had shaky moments where he was holding onto the ball too long. And versus Bolivia, it resulted in an awful turnover where Rangel was lucky to have not conceded a goal. In the game he played in versus New Zealand, he had a good game where he went through the motions well without any mistakes. But on the other hand, when Mexico played against Switzerland last year, he had a horrible performance where he was at fault for two of the goals conceded. He was also shaky in his performance versus South Korea. And of course, in his national team debut versus Uruguay, he had arguably the worst debut performance of any goalkeeper for the Mexico national team. While normally this would automatically result in Rangel being the second or third goalkeeper and potentially excluded from the roster, it seems head coach Javier Aguirre seems to have a preference for Raúl Rangel, which is why he keeps calling him up and giving him a chance. And this has not been ideal, as it has so far been more for worse than for better. Essentially, Javier Aguirre is treating Rangel like a bad TV series on Netflix. The first 3 episodes are bad, but you keep watching it hoping that it gets better, only for that series to remain as bad as the first episodes, or even get worse. It seems Javier Aguirre keeps giving Tala Rangel starting opportunities, hoping he gets better and grows into the starting goalkeeper position, but Rangel has failed to do that so far, and instead he has remained very inconsistent with the national team. However, with Malagón now injured and out for the World Cup and long term, and Aguirre often rotating goalkeepers during the FIFA international dates, starting one goalkeeper in the first game and then another in the next game, Rangel will likely get another opportunity to compete for the starting spot in these games. I imagine he will likely start in the game versus Belgium, where in my opinion he should be on the hot seat. If he has a solid performance, I will have no problem with him being one of the 3 goalkeepers for Mexico in the World Cup. However, if he has another disastrous game like he did versus Switzerland and Uruguay, he cannot be the starting goalkeeper, and at that point, I don't think he should be called up going forward. We'll find out the answer to the questions around Tala Rangel in these games. And lastly, Carlos Acevedo. He was called up in January and February, but did not get a starting opportunity in any of the games. And what this says and what sources covering the team are saying is that Acevedo is being called up as the 3rd goalkeeper and really isn't competing for the starting spot. It is a bit disappointing that we didn't get to see him play during any of the first 3 games of this year. But given Santos' form right now and the fact that Acevedo has conceded at least 2 goals in every game of the Liga MX Clausura so far, I understand why he is being called up as only the 3rd goalkeeper. However, there are reports saying that there are still questions and a debate around who will be the 3rd goalkeeper in the World Cup, as these reports have said that Aguirre has been following Alex Padilla and his performances with Athletic Club Bilbao and likes what he has seen from him so far. If this is true, then at this point it would be better for Aguirre to call up Padilla for the World Cup and start believing in him now and developing him for the future. I have actually argued and said that Aguirre should call up Padilla, so we'll see what happens regarding the 3rd goalkeeper in Mexico's roster for the World Cup. But right now, Acevedo is the 3rd goalkeeper for these games. With that, Guillermo Ochoa, Raúl Tala Rangel, and Carlos Acevedo are the 3 goalkeepers called up, and with Malagón now ruled out with a long-term injury, outside of the debate and argument in favor of Alex Padilla, I think the goalkeeper part of the roster is as good as it can be right now. Moving on to the defense and the defenders in the roster: Jesus Gallardo, Jesus Angulo, Johan Vázquez, Cesar Montes, Israel Reyes, Everardo Lopez, Richard Ledesma, Jorge Sanchez, and Denzel Garcia. Even though Garcia is called up as a midfielder, he normally plays as a right back for Bravos de Juarez. These are the defenders called up for Mexico. With that, I'll talk about the right back position first. Javier Aguirre, like he did in January, has called up 4 players who can play in the right back position: Reyes, Ledesma, Jorge Sanchez, and Garcia. And for Aguirre to again call up 4 right backs, this tells me that he really misses having Rodrigo Huescas in the roster, healthy and able to play. And Vasco has made this clear several times, even though he has not mentioned players by name directly. And this isn't ideal. It's actually a little bit worrying because this looks like Aguirre is hoping that Huescas does recover in time and will be able to play for the World Cup. And if not, Aguirre is unsure who should be the starting right back. However, this uncertainty also comes from some of the right backs called up being in very good form. Richard Ledesma has been excellent for Chivas, and in the games in January and February, he was one of the best players on the field, being able to defend and contribute offensively. Right now, based on the right backs called up for these games, Ledesma should start in both games. Israel Reyes can also play in the right back position. However, while he is very good defensively, he cannot contribute as much offensively like Ledesma can or Huescas when healthy. While he can play as a right back, Reyes can also play as a center back. So even if he doesn't play as a right back. He is a versatile defender that can add depth to the roster and be a substitute for Cesar Montes. So it's a well-deserved call-up for Reyes regardless. And Jorge Sanchez, I know a lot of Mexico fans do not like this, and I have mixed feelings seeing Jorge Sanchez get called up again because he is a very 50-50 case right now. First, I give him a lot of credit and respect for still having the motivated mentality of wanting to go back to Europe and taking less money in the process even after his first stint there with Ajax and Porto failed. This is a mentality you don't see a lot of in Liga MX players who get too comfortable in Mexico and stay for the money, like Alexis Vega did. We'll talk about him later. And to Jorge Sanchez's credit, in Greece with PAOK Thessaloniki, he has made an instant impact defensively where he is already a starter for them. They are in contention for the league title and are in the Greek Cup final as well. And Jorge Sanchez might start in that final. So given he is playing well defensively in Europe, I think Aguirre felt obligated to call him up and give him another opportunity, especially amid the team's injury crisis right now. However, in his performances in Greece, Jorge Sanchez, just like his time with the national team, he has been unable to improve his abilities to contribute offensively and is still bad in this regard. Which leads into the reasons as to why fans hate the idea of Jorge Sanchez being included in the roster again and why he shouldn't be called up going forward. First, and as I just said, Jorge Sanchez is terrible offensively and is often a turnover machine with the ball, as we saw in the Gold Cup last summer versus Costa Rica. And while Sanchez has had good moments and performances defensively, most notably against Japan and in the Nations League finals last year, these performances have not been often, and Jorge Sanchez has more often than not been a complete liability on both sides of the ball, offensively and defensively. With that, given he is playing well in Greece right now, but has historically been awful with the national team, we don't know which version of Jorge Sanchez we will see, and we are all hoping that we miraculously see him play well. But if he is again a liability for Mexico, enough is enough, and it's time for him to be cut from the team and not called up anymore. As for Denzel Garcia, I don't think he is a long-term player for the team that is competing for a spot in the World Cup roster. This is likely a call-up to complete the roster and be a substitute right back. He has only played in 2 games for Mexico, both against Bolivia, and in January he entered the game versus Bolivia as a substitute, ironically for Jorge Sanchez, after he had a terrible performance that saw him get a yellow card within the first 2 minutes of the game. With this in mind, it would not surprise me if Aguirre decided to call up Garcia to temporarily complete the roster and be the substitute right back for Ledesma or Reyes, or if Jorge Sanchez has another disastrous performance. Nevertheless, I wish him the best in this opportunity he was given with La Selección. The one notable right back not included in the roster for these games is Julian Araujo. Reports from Celtic have stated that Julian Araujo is currently dealing with a hamstring injury, and that's why he has not played in Celtic's last 2 games. At the same time, he and his girlfriend also announced the birth of their new child, Angelo. Congrats to him on becoming a father. Hopefully, his hamstring injury is minor, and I hope that him not being called up was more due to this family reason and not because Javier Aguirre thinks that Araujo doesn't fit in the team and his system, and that Aguirre doesn't see him as a valuable player. Because Araujo has been very good with Celtic, and he is definitely a better right back than Jorge Sanchez. And he showed it in his performances during the Gold Cup last year. So hopefully we do see him get called up in May and for the World Cup. As for the center backs, Johan Vazquez, Cesar Montes, Everardo Lopez, and Israel Reyes, who can also play as a center back on the right side. I like all 4 of the center backs called up. Johan is the best center back Mexico has, and he and Cesar Montes will definitely be the starting center backs in the World Cup. They are the best two Mexico have right now. With Chiquete Orozco ruled out with a broken ankle injury, calling up Everardo Lopez after his solid performances in January and February, well-deserved and the correct decision by Aguirre. Lopez is a young left-footed center back who has been great for Toluca, was great for Mexico in the U20 World Cup. This is a well-deserved call-up, and I won't be surprised if he is included in the roster going forward. And Israel Reyes, again, he is a versatile center back, so if he doesn't play as a right back, he is a good player that adds depth to the center back positions. And lastly, the two left backs called up are Jesus Gallardo and Jesus Angulo. And the notable player not included, also due to injury, just like Malagon and Huescas, is Mateo Chavez, who is ruled out for these games with a shoulder injury. He will not be able to play in these games, but fortunately, it looks like he will be fully recovered and ready for the World Cup. But right now, for the time being, Gallardo and Angulo will be the two left backs. While many fans don't like seeing Jesus Gallardo continuing to get called up, in my opinion, it is the correct decision by Javier Aguirre. He is the best left back in Liga MX right now. He was the best player for Mexico in their game versus Iceland. And he has 2 goals and 2 assists in the last 5 games for Toluca, where he has been great for them offensively and defensively. With Mateo Chavez ruled out for these games due to a shoulder injury, Jesus Gallardo will likely be the starting left back for these 2 games. And right now, it's the correct decision as he is the next best left back. And while whoever would end up getting called up after Gallardo would simply be to complete the roster and would not be a player that will be in the World Cup roster, there are at least 2 players that are better options than Jesus Angulo. Angulo, in the 19 games he has played for Mexico so far, has been very lackluster in his performances. And there have been many times where he has struggled to keep up with the pace of play on the field. And this has resulted in moments where he has gotten outplayed and beat in duels on pace. I don't like this call-up. Gerardo Arteaga, who for some reason has not been called up since the Copa America, even though he was one of the better players in those games, and Brian Gonzalez are both better and more informed left backs than Angulo, who can perform in a faster pace of play. I would have rather seen either one of them get called up instead. Fortunately, this is just temporary, and once Mateo Chavez is fully healthy again, he will be back on the roster. Moving on to the midfielders called up, along with Denzel Garcia, Aguirre has called up Eric Lira, Orbelin Pineda, Ober Vargas, very good, Brian Gutierrez, Eric Sanchez, Alvaro Fidalgo, the former Club America midfielder, and Tronco Rodriguez. This is the part of the roster that has been impacted the worst by the current injury crisis, as 3 notable players have not been called up and are unable to play in these games due to injury. Edson Alvarez has been ruled out with an ankle injury, Gilberto Mora remains out with pubalgia, and Marcel Ruiz has now been ruled out for the World Cup with a torn ACL. Wow. You gotta be kidding. Like, essentially, the entire starting midfield has been ruled out for these games due to injury. And this has resulted in some new faces and some rising young players being called up, as well as some of the same players that shouldn't be here but are by default amid the injury crisis. Starting off with Eric Lira. Entering these games, he was seen as the next best defensive midfielder, adding depth to the position with Edson Alvarez. With Alvarez ruled out for these games, Eric Lira will likely be the main defensive midfielder for these games and will likely start in at least one of the games. I think this is a good call-up as he has been solid with Cruz Azul so far. However, he will now have competition to be one of the 2 defensive midfielders for the World Cup with Ober Vargas. Ober Vargas, during the winter transfer window, made the incredible move to Atletico Madrid and is currently part of their main team. And while he isn't a starting player yet for Atleti, he is already getting significant playing time with the team in their Copa del Rey games and has played in 3 La Liga games so far, including a very solid performance versus Getafe, where he was a starting player. Congrats to him on the big move to Spain. This is a well-deserved call-up, and he should start in at least one or both of these games. And he should be part of the team for the World Cup. Any healthy player in your prospect pool who is playing for one of the best teams in Spain should never be left off the roster. With that, I think this does potentially put Eric Lira's spot on the team in jeopardy, because if Ober Vargas has better performances than him, or if Lira struggles in these games, Aguirre will surely think differently about where both players stand in the depth chart for the defensive midfielder position. Orbelín Pineda returns to the roster. He has currently been in solid form with AEK Athens, where he is one of their starting midfielders in just about every game, as they not only remain in contention for the league championship in Greece, but they are also having a very competitive campaign in the UEFA Conference League right now. He has 4 goals and an assist so far this year with Athens, and has played a big part in AEK Athens being able to create scoring chances and maintain ball possession. I still think he is good enough to be called up, and even more so now amid all the injuries. Moving on to the 2 new faces being called up to the main team for Mexico, Álvaro Fidalgo and Brian Gutierrez. Starting off with attacking midfielder Brian Gutierrez, he made his Mexico national team debut in January versus Panama, and he played in all 3 of Mexico's games in January and February, and has made an instant positive impact with the team. He was one of the better players on the field in the game versus Panama, and in Mexico's most recent game versus Iceland, he was excellent, creating 6 opportunities for Mexico and scoring the 4th goal of the game, which was his first for Mexico. He has also been very good for Chivas. With that, this is a well-deserved call-up for Gutierrez, and I am excited to see how he plays in these games. Moving on to Álvaro Fidalgo, the Spanish-Mexican is being called up for the first time after completing the naturalization process and obtaining Mexican citizenship. And this is the player that has a lot of Mexico fans talking and debating among each other. I have heard a lot of people say that he shouldn't be called up because he's a naturalized player, that he's Spanish and isn't truly Mexican, even though he has Mexican citizenship now. According to the logic of fans who say this, apparently there are levels to being Mexican. These people also say that, if Spain wanted to call him up, he would never even consider playing for Mexico. He just wants to play international football, and that's why he's playing for Mexico. I strongly disagree with these opinions, which should not only be condemned for being extremely nativist and xenophobic, but it's also hypocritical to say when most fans look at this roster and want Ledesma to be the starting right back. The same people who are against Fidalgo being called up also have 0 problems and don't criticize Richard Ledesma, who prior to joining the Mexico national team was in a similar position. Richard Ledesma, who was eligible to play for either Mexico or the United States as a Mexican American, initially played and made his international debut for the United States. But after being constantly excluded from their rosters and not being valued within the US player pool, he made the decision to change his international allegiance to Mexico. None of the people who are criticizing Fidalgo getting called up are saying the same things about Ledesma, and after Ledesma's performances in January and February, many of these same fans want him to be the starting right back in these games. Very hypocritical. If we are okay with Richard Ledesma being on the team, we should be okay with Álvaro Fidalgo getting called up as well and getting the opportunity to play his way onto the World Cup roster. And from a football perspective, when it comes to Fidalgo's performances and form at the club level, he deserves to be called up. After not really being given an opportunity in Europe in the first years of his career, to being to being incredibly successful with Club America and now returning to Europe with Real Betis, where he has already become a starting player for the team. He has been excellent at the club level, and he now brings European club level depth that the team needs more of. If he is motivated and willing to play for Mexico and he performs well, I'm okay with him being part of the Mexico national team. And I would much rather go with the new in a naturalized player than the bad that we have already seen in Tronco Rodriguez. Which unfortunately brings up the next player called up for the midfielders in Tronco Rodriguez. Listen, I do not care if he is playing well with Cruz Azul right now. We have seen him play well at the club level. And by play well, I mean he gets carried by the rest of the team, which is more talented than him, and gets 1 or 2 goals on opportunities that would be inexcusable to fail on until he eventually gets exposed as the tronco that he is in the Liga. And then he's always a complete tronco, a fraud with the national team. He has played in 66 games for Mexico, more than Hugo Sanchez, and has 0 goals and just 1 mediocre assist. That was in 2019, 7 years ago. Outside of that, every time he plays for Mexico, it is practically 11 versus 10 or 12 versus 10 because he will play so badly that he actually helps the opposing team. I am fed up and done seeing this awful player, this tronco, be allowed to fail every single time he plays. The Mexico national team is better without Tronco Rodriguez. And if an injury is the only thing that results in him being excluded from the team and the roster going forward, so be it. But I hope it doesn't come down to that. And this is one reason why I am okay with Fidalgo being called up, because hopefully Fidalgo and a good performance from him will guarantee that Tronco Rodriguez gets excluded from the national team for good without an injury, and hoping that an injury will exclude Tronco in the future. Tronco Rodriguez should not start or even play in any of these games. It's the truth. As for the final midfielder in the roster, Eric Sanchez, this is probably a call-up to simply to complete the roster right now amid the team having more injuries than the average NHL hockey team. He has not been called up consistently for Mexico after the Copa America, and I don't think he is seen as a long-term player for the team anymore. Nevertheless, with the injuries to Gilberto Mora, Edson, and Marcel Ruiz, he has been called up and given an opportunity, so hopefully he makes the most of it, and I wish him the best. Obviously, this isn't the best midfield Mexico has with the notable players out due to injury. While Ruiz will be unable to play in the World Cup, hopefully Mora and Edson have a full and quick recovery and we see them back with the Mexico national team soon. Gilberto Mora on social media posted a photo with the caption, "battery charging," suggesting he could return to play soon. So hopefully that is a positive sign. And again, hopefully all these players have a full and quick recovery and that we are able to see at least 2 of the 3 in the 2026 World Cup. And the last part of the roster, the offensive front. Head coach Javier Aguirre has called up 7 players for the offensive front. They are Raúl Jiménez, bien. Julián Quiñones, bien, also very good. Piojo Alvarado, Alexis Vega, who is returning from injury. Guillermo Martinez, Germán Berterame, and Hormiga González. Starting off with Raúl Jiménez and Julián Quiñones, they absolutely should be called up now and for the World Cup. Raúl Jiménez playing well in the Premier League and is the best striker Mexico has right now, and he will be the starting striker in the World Cup. As for Julián Quiñones, he is currently the top goal scorer in the Saudi Pro League and is still in incredible form even after his successful tenure in Mexico. And in my opinion, in a 2-striker formation, he should be the one who starts alongside Raúl Jiménez. Both of these players should be called up now in May, and they should be part of the World Cup roster. As for Germán Berterame, the Argentine-Mexican naturalized player returned to the roster after most recently being called up in January. However, I am against calling up Berterame, and not because of him being a naturalized player. I am against Berterame being called up because he has not been in good form so far this year. In the winter, he made the transfer and joined Lionel Messi and Inter Miami in the MLS. And he has had a terrible start to the season with them, yet to score a goal in any of their games so far. And when he has been called up to play for Mexico, Javier Aguirre has tried multiple times to play him outside of his normal position as a winger, which tells me he doesn't fit within Aguirre's system and style of play. With Berterame not playing well at the club level right now and not looking good in Aguirre's system when playing for Mexico, I don't think Berterame should be called up for these games or the World Cup. I'll say the same thing for Guillermo Martinez, who only has 2 goals in the Clausura of the Liga MX season so far. And for Martinez, he has actually been worse than Berterame recently, losing his starting spot with Pumas. He wasn't a solution during the Copa America, and he isn't a long-term player for Mexico now. I honestly think that Berterame and Martinez being called up at this point is simply to complete the roster amid Santi Jimenez just coming back from an ankle injury this last weekend. Aguirre and the national team have pretty much made it clear that if Santi is 100% healthy and available by June for the World Cup, that he will likely be called up. With that, I don't see Berterame or Martinez being part of the team going forward when there are 3 strikers clearly better than them. And Mexico should not and will not leave out their best prospect who is playing for AC Milan. Moving on to the wingers, Alexis Vega and Piojo Alvarado are the 2 wingers called up for these games, with Chino Huerta still ruled out due to pubalgia like Gilberto Mora. However, I do not like or fully agree with the idea of calling either up. Alexis Vega is a very 50-50 scenario where he is excellent and looks motivated with Toluca, but has not been able to consistently replicate that same good form or motivation with the national team. As for Piojo Alvarado, he has been non-existent at best for Mexico over the last year, with the last goal or assist he contributed being in the CONCACAF Nations League finals. Piojo also hasn't contributed as much with Chivas, even though the team is in excellent form right now. Chino Huerta, when 100% healthy, has looked better than both of them, and I think it's time to call up new wingers as well. It is crazy that Aguirre has been reluctant to call up Osiel Herrera, who has been excellent for Tigres, and just scored 2 incredible goals in their CONCACAF Champions comeback versus Cincinnati. Osiel Herrera, Hugo Camberos, and Alexis Dominguez are all younger and better options that deserve an opportunity and should be called up instead. And last but not least, arguably the most exciting of the young players called up, Hormiga Gonzalez is the final player included in the roster. This is 100% a well-deserved call-up. And he is currently the top goal scorer in Liga MX and is currently one of the highest scoring U23 players in the world. Look for him to get significant playing time in both of these games and even start in one of them, likely against Belgium, as he looks to not only play his way onto Mexico's roster for the World Cup, but also play his way into a big club in Europe in the summer. There you have it, the Mexico national team roster for March and their games versus Portugal and Belgium. And if I were to grade Javier Aguirre and this roster, I would give this roster a B grade. Obviously, with the injury crisis the team is currently dealing with right now, this is not the best possible roster Javier Aguirre and the Mexico national team could have. Also, I would have liked to see new wingers get called up and be given the opportunity to prove themselves. Nevertheless, many of the best players who are healthy have been called up, and I look forward to seeing how they perform. Hopefully, the Mexico national team will get a good result in their first game in Estadio Azteca in the stadium's reopening versus Portugal on Saturday. Andres de AA Sports. That will be all for this Mexico national team video. Leave a like and subscribe to support the channel, and put your opinions on the roster in the comments below. Stay tuned in for more Mexico national team and Mexico women's national team content and videos on the channel. And with that, thanks for watching and listening. Viva Mexico!